If you were hoping the spring market would bring the usual flurry of buyer activity, March 2025 had other ideas. In fact, for the second month in a row, we saw the kind of numbers that completely buck the seasonal trend. Starting in Toronto's core, we saw 999 sales, up 14% from February, but down 17% year over year. That might not sound too bad until you realize that this was the lowest number of March sales in 9 years. Yes, even lower than 2020, the year the market practically froze mid-month due to COVID. At the same time, new listings exploded, climbing to 3,755, which is up 29% from February and 30% higher than March of 2024. This was the second highest number of new listings for any March on record, only behind March 2021, which, as many of you will remember, was the busiest year ever for home sales in Toronto. So when you pair the lowest sales with one of the highest numbers of new listings, you get a lot of supply that just isn't moving. Inventory in the core hit 5,360 active listings, which is up 20% from February and 47% year over year. That's the fifth highest level of active listings for any month, not just March, in the past 9 years. The sales to new listing ratio fell to 27%, down from 30% in February and well below last March's 42%, confirming that we are still very clearly in buyer's market territory. Months of inventory climbed slightly to 5.4, up from 5.1 last month, and almost double the 3 that we saw this time last year. But reporting these numbers isn't telling the whole story, so let's break it down by property type. In the core, 446 freeholds sold versus 553 condos. There were 1,199 new listings for freeholds compared to a massive 2,566 condos. Active inventory, 1,348 houses and 3,915 condos. That means 74% of the available listings in the core right now are condos, and that's where the imbalance is most extreme. So shifting to Etobicoke, North York, and Scarborough, the story is almost identical. Sales rose to 892, up 31% from February, but still down 20% from last year. And just like the core, this was the lowest number of March sales in 9 years, including 2020. New listings came in at 2,958, which is up 32% month over month and 30% higher year over year, making it the second highest total for any March in these areas. Inventory ballooned to 4,029 active listings. That's up 22% from February and a massive 66% increase from March 2024. That's now the fourth highest total for any month in the past 9 years. The sales to new listing ratio stayed flat at 30%, down from 49% last year, and months of inventory dropped slightly to 4.5, mostly because sales were up just enough to keep pace with new listings. And when we look at the breakdown, we saw 414 freehold sales versus 478 condos, 1,306 new freehold listings and 1,652 condos, and 1,569 active houses compared to 2,400. So again, condos are where inventory is really building and sales just aren't keeping up. So what does all this mean for you? If you're a buyer, you have more selection than you've had in years, and not just a few more homes, record-setting levels of inventory for this time of year. There is ample opportunity to negotiate, particularly in the condo segment, where supply is outpacing demand by a wide margin. If you're a condo buyer, you're in an especially strong position. Sellers are under pressure, listings are sitting longer, and there's less competition. If you're looking for a house, the dynamic is a little different. There's still more inventory than usual, but the supply isn't as extreme as with condos. You might not have the same negotiating power, but there's still a window of opportunity, especially if sellers start to pull listings later this spring. And here's what I'm seeing out there with my buyer clients. Some houses are receiving multiple offers. 2 houses in the East End had 4 and 9 offers during their recent offer nights, and 3 places in the West End received 3, 5, and 7 offers. However, there are other homes that are planning an offer night and then end up relisting at their actual price expectation the day after their failed offer night, which means they either didn't get any offers or they didn't get what they were hoping for. On the seller side, it can be a challenging market. If your home isn't priced properly and marketed well, it's going to get lost in the crowd. This is particularly true for condos, where the sheer volume of listings is overwhelming. If you're thinking about listing, be strategic. Look at what's actually selling and position your property accordingly. One trend I'll be watching closely is whether some of this inventory starts to come off the market. In February, we saw signs that condo owners were getting frustrated and holding back. And if that continues through the spring, we could see some pressure ease on the supply side. Looking ahead, the question is whether April and May can bring the kind of buyer demand that starts to absorb absorb some of this inventory. So far, that hasn't happened, but with interest rates low and choices high, if confidence improves, we could still see a delayed but busy spring. Until then, this remains a very strong buyer's market for condos, and it's a bit of a mixed bag in the house category. I'll be watching the numbers closely, and I'll be back next month to break it all down. If you want to stay ahead of the market, make sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next.